Hello, and thank you so much for coming back to Tea Time, the bi-monthly podcast on this, I don't know how I started it, channel. Once again, Admiral Paco is with us to talk about the new Black Panther movie. Just so everybody knows how far in advance I do these recordings, Paco, what is the date that we are doing this recording for you?
Oh, today is 11/19/2022.
So when
And
this goes up...
I just saw the film. I've only seen it once.
Right. Today we're going to be talking about the Black Panther 2 movie. I haven't seen it, so I'm going to be snacking on the cake and apple I brought with me while Paco regales me with all of this, so all of you know how far in advance I do these tea times.
I will be curious to see when it actually goes up, but I'm going to imagine that spoilers are not going to be much of an issue at that point.
Yeah, if by the time this goes up, which will be like 2024, because I've got so much on the back burner waiting to come out, if you still haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but that is no longer an us issue.
Yep, so spoilers will abound from this point on.
So how was Black Panther 2?
My initial honest assessment of it is that I was disappointed.
Ooh.
I do think that there was a good core idea in that film, but I think that because of how MCU movies work, it got undercut by the needs of the greater MCU universe. Thus, that underlying story is just not as cohesive and good as it could have been.
That makes sense. Oh, I guess disclaimer, I am only a half Hispanic woman, and Paco is... Paco, what are you?
Every flavor of white.
He is all the cheese that is pale. That's a nice way of saying it.
Basically, if it is north of the Alps, I probably have ancestors there.
So when we are talking...
All of them.
So when we are talking about this, we are not coming at this from the geopolitical standpoint of African Americans. We are coming at this from the writing perspective of it. Writing does not have a nationality or race. It has a, did you do it good?
Yep. And so largely my analysis is going to be focused on that writing. I may dabble ever so slightly into the geopolitics, as I do have a history degree. That is what my educational background is in.
Nice.
So there may be some elements that tie into that a little bit because of the themes and narrative of the film. But yeah, it is certainly worth noting that when it comes to my own identity, my ancestry is all of the Northern Europeans. I hit the Swedes, I hit German, I hit English, I hit Scots, I hit French. Like, it is a lot of the Northern Europeans that may have engaged in a slight amount of colonialism and imperialism.
So when this disclaimer comes up, it's not to say we don't think that you shouldn't make black superheroes. We're coming at this from, you can make any kind of superhero you want, but please, for the love of God, write with clarity, or at least have a good premise and don't stray from it too far.
Yeah, and frankly, when it comes to my disappointment in this film, like, it doesn't really have much to do with that element at all. I think that the core of this film was supposed to be about grief. I went into this film knowing, basically what I knew going into this film was that T'Challa, the King of Wakanda, was dead.
Because the actor who played him IRL passed away tragically young.
Yeah, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. You left us far too soon. And so I knew that was going to be well, at least it was likely going to be a major story beat of the whole film. I knew that T'Challa was going to be dead. I knew that Shuri was going to be the new Black Panther somehow, and I knew that Namor was going to be a primary character / antagonist for the film. That is basically everything that I knew about the story. I otherwise did not know anything going in. And so I was not surprised in watching the film that one of the major undercurrents throughout the whole movie was how to deal with grief. Specifically in how the main characters dealt with the death of T'Challa, whether it was Shuri or whether it was oh god darn it, why can't I think of T'Challa's mother's name? Ramonda, Queen Ramonda, or Okoye, and finally Nakia. So those were the 4 primary characters from the first Black Panther movie that had close relationships or connections with T'Challa by being a sister, mother, bodyguard / friend, and partner.
Like
and
fiance,
so
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I was like, I thought that was fiance in the last movie.
Maybe they got married. It didn't happen on screen. But regardless, those 4 characters have major points throughout the film talking about their grief, and the film makes a point of showing those characters and how they reacted to that grief. And I think that was a very good idea for how to structure your core theme of the film. Unfortunately, I think that was significantly undercut by a secondary narrative that only loosely ties into the main conflict between Wakanda and the underwater nation, whose name is currently escaping me, that Namor is in charge of. And that secondary narrative is basically tension between Wakanda and everyone else, because everyone else wants vibranium and Wakanda doesn't want to give anyone vibranium. And given humanity's, like, the countries that exist in the world of the MCU, like, I do have a, really, who can blame Wakanda for not wanting to give other countries vibranium?
I mean,
their track records are not great.
Historically speaking, what are you gonna do if we give you this all-powerful metal? Oh, just a little bit of science, just a little bit of humanitarianism, and a whole hell of a lot of war. There it is. There's the answer we're looking for.
We found it. We found it. Right there. Yeah, so there, we can yoink in the history degree a little bit. Like it's a, yeah, Wakanda in, like, if in the real world, yeah, I wouldn't give vibranium to the United States or France or Great Britain or China.
Or Russia.
Or Russia, yeah. Or Iran or Israel or Saudi Arabia. Like, the list goes on. Yeah, I would not trust any modern state in the current world with vibranium.
I'm trying to think of one country at all in the world that hasn't done anything, and all I can think of is Mongolia, and I was like, I mean, I think they got all their war shit out of the way, like with Genghis Khan. I think they had their go of it, now they're just like, nah, I'm good. You sure?
Like, it's
yeah.
It's a maybe Iceland? Iceland doesn't have a military.
Iceland doesn't need a military. Look at where it is. There's volcanoes everywhere. Why would you want it?
Yeah, Costa Rica, they don't have a military either. They Random side note: Costa Rica, one of the major reasons why they disbanded their military was, you know what? I bet this will stop coups from happening. The military can't coup the government if there is no military. Um,
I don't have a degree in history, but I'm a big history nerd, so I'm laughing because that is not at all how coups work or operate. E2, Brutus? Yes.
yes. It's like that. That has been a pattern of Central and South American countries of coups happening from the military, and then a general is in charge for a while. So like, it's a, you know what, I see what you're doing there, but who's defending your country now?
Drugs.
The police? Well, it's, frankly, so far it has worked out for Costa Rica. They continue to be an independent country and a surprisingly stable government and relatively well off for the region, so I don't know, maybe they're onto something. United States, take notes.
In the year of Our Lady Dolly Parton.
Yeah. But back to the film. So they have this secondary narrative that is introduced very early on of Wakanda being under pressure to share vibranium, and they have a scene like showing mercenaries attempting to take vibranium from a Wakanda like outpost, outreach center, I think is the term they use, outreach center, and they show Queen Ramonda at like a UN meeting of some kind, basically going, hey, you are pressuring us to share vibranium. Hey, look at these mercenaries we caught trying to steal it by force. We know who did it. We know it's one of you in here. We're not going to tell you who.
Insert nervous monkey side-eye gift here.
Yeah. And so stop trying to take our stuff. This is evidence of why we're not willing to share.
Like, you can ask, but we're still going to tell you no.
Yeah. And so there is that very early in the film. There is a different inciting incident to bring Namor and the undersea kingdom that he rules into the conflict, which is basically a CIA Navy SEAL task force using a vibranium detecting machine under the ocean, where they found vibranium, and Namor and his people went no touch, bad, and killed them all, which leads the CIA into believing that Wakanda is responsible because, like, they don't know about Namor and his people, and who else would be so eager to defend vibranium from somewhere but Wakanda? So that is used as an inciting incident both for Namor to contact Wakanda, but also for instigating a conflict between the United States and Wakanda, which goes nowhere in this film, in the sense of they hype up this potential conflict between the USA and Wakanda. Like, they dedicate multiple scenes to it throughout the movie, ratcheting up the tension, but they don't resolve that plot line at all in this film. And that, for me, is the major disappointment of this movie, is that they dedicate a lot of screen time to that plot point without it actually going anywhere for this film. And it is a plot line that takes away from the core part of the movie, which is about grief, and later about how to deal with loss, and well, I guess how to deal with loss.
From what you're describing, it sounds like they were trying to do the stages of grief, but like in movie format, and I'm like, that doesn't usually work. Because everybody goes through the stages differently. It's not like it's a you start at A, naturally progress all the way through all of them, and end at your resolution. That's not how grief works. Grief works in wibbly wobbly squiggly lines.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that's how the film was trying to message grief so much as how different people process it differently.
Oh yeah, no.
Like Queen Ramonda processed it very differently from Shuri, who processed it very differently from Nakia, who processed it very differently from Okoye.
Yeah.
And all of their different responses of how they're processing that grief is given screen time, and I think that was a really valuable message for the film, in showing how different people process grief and the trajectories that can take them down.
Yeah. Some people stay in the anger stage of grief for a long, long time, and then all of a sudden they just get that breakthrough. They have a really, really deep cry about it, and then it's like their grief is done. It's like, you didn't do the stages. Just because there are stages doesn't mean you get to see all of them. It means there is one that stays in the front all the time.
Yeah, and as you're saying, these stages of grief aren't so much to borrow a line from another movie, they're more like guidelines than actual rules.
Thank you, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. It is not actually okay, here are the stages of grief that you must go from A to B to C to get through all of them. One, you don't have to necessarily hit all of them, or at the very least, going through some of them can be very, very quick. Also, you can go backwards. You can go through some and then backtrack and have to process the earlier ones again.
Yeah, some people can be right there. They're right there at the door of, like, acceptance, and then all of a sudden we're back into anger. I don't know how we got back to anger. I feel like it's a game of chutes and ladders. How did you slide all the way back down to the beginning?
Oh no, a poor roll. I guess we're sliding back down. Hopefully we hit a ladder later.
Yeah. Welcome to the Game of Lights. Chutes and ladders is very reminiscent of life. I was on an upward trajectory, and now you're hitting nothing but slides. Take it and keep going.
Now we're sliding all the way back down.
Yeah, so far though, this movie does seem like, it sounds like it has really good ideas, and then they were just like, who was the secondary writer that dropped the ball?
Yeah, or it was, like, MCU gods from on high going, we need this major plot line through here to lead us into this next film.
Can we not just make an after credits scene for it? Nope.
No, it must be a major thing throughout the whole film.
Okay.
Also, we're paying Martin Freeman a lot of money to be in this, and so we need to make sure that he's on the screen.
The guy from Sherlock Holmes?
Yep, the guy from Sherlock Holmes. He is back as Everett K. Ross.
He also played Bilbo Baggins.
Yep, that he did.
I'm gonna have to say, I don't like the fact that they stretched the Hobbit movies out into 3 different movies. Like, we didn't need that. But also, I can't complain, because it's like, they were enjoyable.
Oh yeah, we can totally side tangent onto that for a moment, because one of the things that I have read on why it was 3 movies was that the original profit sharing agreement between all of the different studios and entities that were involved, that profit sharing only applied to, I don't remember if it was the first movie or the first two, but in essence, whoever the main movie studio was that made the Hobbit films, I think Time Warner, but I'm not positive, that because of how the profit sharing agreement worked, they didn't have to share the profits on the third film. And so the movie studio basically had hey, if we make a third movie, we can make so much more money because we don't have to share it with anyone. And went to Peter Jackson and went, Peter Jackson, you're going to make a third Hobbit movie. And it was basically, but I already wrote a script and we're filming for a first film and then a second one. And it was you're going to make 3 movies. And that's part of why the second 2 kind of feel very stretched, because what was supposed to be 1 second film got stretched into 2 separate films, a second and a third.
Yeah.
So more or less, the first film is as it was original, like that was the original plan. But the second and third movies were, well, this was supposed to be 1 film, and now it is 2.
I'm just gonna eat my apple in disappointment. Because I have no words.
But yeah, that is where we get the, I feel spread, like too little butter across too much bread.
It's better than some movies who it's too much butter on a slice of bread. Like the Divergent series, which was a young adult novel. They only made 1 of those movies, and I remember watching it, and I remember feeling my eyes starting to droop because I was like, oh my god, you're throwing so much at you with like no pauses in between. It's just a lot of exposition. I'm going to sleep.
That's the one with Shailene Woodley.
Where they're all separated into different temperaments, and like she gets a different temperament than the farmers that she was born into, and then surprise twist, her mom was part of the aggro group and she decided to just marry it's like,
oh yeah.
For those any Divergent fans that listen to this, it's not that I didn't listen, it's just there was so much thrown at me and I wasn't gonna go pick up the book after so much was thrown at me.
Yeah, and if my memory serves, the Divergent series got canceled after the 3rd film, I think.
There were 2 other movies? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there were multiple films, and
I know there were multiple books.
I think that for the 3rd one, it was supposed to be like a part 1 and part 2, and the part 1 did so poorly that they never made part 2.
Wow.
I would need to double check that. But it was one of the young adult post-apocalyptic United States series that got turned into movies that ended up
I just imagine that the end of
holding the audience attention.
You want to know what all I can think of is the end of the world happens and it's only us that are like, we gotta Mad Max the shit out of this. Everybody else is like, are yous good? Do you wanna, we're processing. Okay. Let us know when you're
like
done.
USA, are you okay? I have run across a joke along those lines of like, all of these post-apocalyptic futures just impacts the United States. Like, the rest of the world is fine. And they're just sitting there like, huh. So, do you think the USA is going to show up to the Olympics this year or not? It's like, well, I think they're still dealing with that hell portal or something. Let's put them down as a maybe.
Okay, here's the thing. I know we've been on the tangent for a while, but also I feel like it will come back to the Black Panther movie here in a minute. I watched on Netflix, right? It was called Japan Sinks 2020. it was an anime, and I was watching it, and it's just about how a mega massive earthquake hits Japan, and it impacts it really hard, and basically the Japanese population is displaced into the smaller islands surrounding the one main island, and I was like, okay, lots of follow-up questions, but alright, I'll follow you. And then all of a sudden it's just like, we're rebuilding Japan, this time on, like, concrete blocks, and I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. That does not solve your problem.
I feel like earthquakes may still be a concern.
Right? I was watching it on a television, and I remember I did the, little guy, hold up motion as I pressed pause. I was like, hold up, wait. What? I was so confused. Like, it was a believable story, and then we're just gonna rebuild Japan on top of concrete blocks, and I was like, what?
Okay, I guess this is just Venice now.
Yeah, I legitimately was like, who got to write the final episode? Because I feel like it was the person who had been sick for a vast majority of this, and they only got the spark notes of everything on, like, a Google Doc, and they were like, great idea, 10 out of 10. And the animators just had to deal with it, like, concrete blocks? What?
Okay, concrete blocks it is. Here we go.
And the reason why this is going to tangent back into Black Panther, I again feel like this was also a writer who was sick for a lot of the spitballing phase, and then they got their wish somehow because somebody at the Marvel studio was like, yes, big money. Is it though? The audience doesn't like when you poke them to go watch another movie. Like, if you keep bugging me about it, I'll just stop watching them.
Well, and it really depends on how it's done, because that actually is a good side tangent into the film, because they introduce the character Riri Williams, who in the comics is, my understanding is like kind of the heir, so to speak, in terms of picking up like the Iron Man mantle. Not that she has any specific relation to Tony Stark, but in the sense of like, she makes suits that do cool things, and she's a brilliant scientist.
Yeah.
And so the movie introduces that character.
Oh, okay, just like how the latest Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness introduced America Chavez. America, the person, not the country. They're introducing all of the new Avengers into all these new... Okay.
Yep.
I don't have to like it, but okay.
Yeah. And I would say that how they introduce her in the film and how her character is treated in the film, like, I know that they're here because MCU wants to do future things with this person, but their introduction into the plot and how they are used, for lack of a better term, in the story, it's they're fine there. This does not detract from the movie. It does not detract from the overall story arc. Their presence here is good, and frankly, there is a scene with that character that actually does a lot to advance elements of the character plot, that I think is good, so that's great. When the MCU movies are introducing like Easter eggs or new characters or new plot lines of that nature that don't detract from the movie that I'm watching, I'm not gonna complain too much. I'm not gonna complain too much about that. Like, I kind of know what I'm getting into to some extent with the MCU in that regards. What I will complain about is if your secondary plot lines or secondary characters are detracting from the movie that I'm watching.
Ooh,
If
yes.
it's undercutting the story that this movie is telling, then I am going to be annoyed by that, because I did not come to this movie to watch the setup for the next movie. I came to this movie to watch this movie.
Yeah?
I would like this story, please. I will watch the next story when I get there.
We'll get there when we get there.
Mhm.
Thanks, Mr. Incredible.
Yep.
Ah, okay. So, that is actually a really good point. Like, the Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus, okay, these are side stories to main movie events. Like, hey, if you want more, we've got these, which introduce new heroes, which we just won't make a big screen movie budget for because it's gonna be hard to fill seats because nobody knows who the fuck this person is. Okay, thanks for being honest.
Or wanting to tell a story that, like, we're not going to be able to tell this in a 2-hour movie, so we're going to tell it in a, I don't know how, off the top of my head, I don't know how long the episodes usually are. 45 minutes?
Usually
An
about.
hour?
I'm gonna be honest. The Loki ones were about a solid 45 minutes,
Okay.
but also they were talking about time stuff and like multiverse shenanigans, so it's like you can't condense that down to a 30-minute episode, and 30-minute episodes are not going to condense everything down. 45-minute episodes in 10 increments still kind of didn't cover it. You guys hella rushed the last episode because you were like, we gotta finish this up because we don't have any more budget.
We have no more episodes to go. But the broader point is that those TV shows give the opportunity to tell stories that can be stretched over a longer duration of, like, real world view time than just a 2-hour film.
Right.
Or in the case of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, a 2-hour and 41-minute film.
We
So
are we are stretching
dragged
it.
a tad long.
I'm gonna say it's like, ooh, we are stretching it hardcore at that movie marker.
Yep. And again, not helped by the fact that they kept including scenes for this secondary plot, for the secondary narrative that wasn't going to be resolved in this film, that is there to set up future stuff.
Right. You want?
Like it,
Oh.
I actually think a good counterexample in terms of doing that well is the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Oh my god.
Because the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie is our first on-screen, like, main movie, not just a end credits scene introduction to Thanos, as well as clearly explaining the Infinity Stones. So that is the first, like, major movie introduction of the Infinity War storyline and Thanos as the big bad.
Right.
But it's done in the context of the narrative arc of the film that it is in.
That's true. And then at the end of that movie, it is an entirely separate scene of him getting the gauntlet, which you don't know yet, right? When the first movie came out, and him going, fine, I'll do it myself. Because you've already been established in this movie, this is the guy that's about to wreck everybody's shit. And now, at the end of this movie, he's like, I'll do it myself. Because now you're like, oh no. What happened in the span of one movie? We've made him so mad.
Oh dear.
Mistakes were made. The big guy's coming off of his couch. We don't want the big guy to get up off the couch.
Oh no, he got out of the chair. This isn't good.
Right. But when people try and use that, it's like, fine, I'll do it myself. I'm like, no. You don't understand the context of this. The context that led up to this scene is infinitely more hilarious because Guardians of the Galaxy is resolved by a dance battle.
Yep.
It's one of those weird, huh?
And then we also give the Infinity Stone to the Nova Corps, whose ranks have just been depleted.
It's a very...
I'm sure the Nova Corps will be fine.
I'm just gonna hard cut here to, like, an audio clip of just people screaming and be like, yeah, they're fine.
Yep, everything. It's fine.
No.
Situation normal.
Right. But it is. It's like, look, if you're gonna sit there and preach and prattle on to me for the next big bad or next big setup for stuff, fine. But do not keep bugging the shit out of me. Don't sit in my lap and tug on my hair and tell me, did you see it? Did you see it? You're gonna make me not want to go see the next one because I don't care about it.
And it better be incorporated into, like, well integrated into your current film's major plot. Like in the case of Guardians of the Galaxy, what makes it very core integrated to the plot is, one, the Power Stone being the MacGuffin that everybody is trying to get, and also the fact that our big bad of that movie, whose name is currently escaping me.
He's a squirrel? No, he's a crane. He's blue. He's colored blue.
Yeah, he's colored blue. Man, the MCU fans are gonna be so mad at us for not having the name on the top of our, like, at the top of our fingertips.
Oh, well, when I'm editing, I'll just slap it on and be like, this guy.
Slap it on the screen, name underneath. Look, we knew the whole time. But he was hired by Thanos to do the thing.
Legitimately, I don't want to do it. I bought somebody to do it for me, and then he failed, and now I have to get up and put on a bra and go do grocery shopping on my own.
I have to go get the Infinity Stone myself. Fine, I guess.
Which is actually a really good way to write, like, your mega end-all villain, is that all the other villains that your protagonists, more than one, have to fight aren't even the main bad guys. They're hired help for the main bad guy that if he decides he's had enough of you, he's coming to wreck your shit. And then he does.
Yeah.
In Infinity War, he comes to wreck their shit.
Yep. And you can just have the barest veneer of, like, justification for why isn't he just going to get the power MacGuffins? And
because
like,
he doesn't want to.
Frankly, it just seems to be like, you know what? This chair is very comfy, and I'm gonna have some other people do it for me.
Yeah,
I've been going around wrecking planets, killing half the population for a while. I'm gonna take a break and sit in my easy chair for a while and let some other people do the job.
Legitimately, that's all it is, and it's not a bad way to write that the big bad evil guy is... He's got other big bad evil guys that are scared of him and he's making them do the dirty work? Yes. But why? I'm the baddest bitch on this block. I don't have to do anything if I don't want to. But you don't want me to do stuff because I definitely don't care what the collateral damage is. I'll take a whole city block with me if I gotta. You don't want that.
But I will try to keep the collateral damage down to like half the population. I'll try not to dip lower than that. That's my promise, is the big bad guy.
Oh, actually, you know what? That's a great tangent, because I finally got around to watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is, finally, they talk about the fact that, yes, half the population just got nerfed off of the leaderboards for...
Blip.
Right, there was zero warning, zero reason. But then when the snap is reversed and they're back, suddenly they haven't moved from where they were suddenly blipped from. But this also means how many people that were zapped that were, like, on airplanes. Like, what happens if a pilot was zapped out, like, both of them, and the plane crashed? They've just been blipped back into the air with no plane, so they are probably dead. This is the only MCU where they actually make it a point of saying the displacement from the blip, which is legitimately what it's called, is actively screwing the government over hard, is because there is now suddenly 80 million people in one state that just suddenly came back to being where they were, some of them in their own houses, and people that have moved in while they've been gone now have to deal with the fact that they technically never left, but they've moved in. So now it's a matter of who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah, that is a thing that also gets touched on very briefly in the second Spider-Man film, um, like where they introduced the term the blip, um, and also makes some mention of varying complications that has, like all of Spider-Man's friends and like Peter Parker and all of his friends that got blipped, they have to retake the school year that they got blipped out of.
Which they are upset about because technically...
That is an amusing talking point to me or thing at the very beginning of the film.
Right, because to them it's not fair. It's like, we didn't purposely miss a year. We literally died.
Well, and it's like, I don't know at what point in the school year the blip happened. I mean, the movies that it's based on always, like, they come out in May. So maybe we're presuming that the blip happened in May, so it's well, I guess you didn't quite finish the school year. Retake that one, please.
Yeah, and in Falcon and the Winter Soldier too, because Bucky, right, and Sam, who is the Falcon, both got blipped at one point. So, specifically it focuses on Bucky. He's actually, good for him, he's finally talking to a therapist about it and all of his other Winter Soldier shenanigans. And the therapist point blank tells him, I can't make you forget the horrible things you did. Like, that's not what therapy is. You have to get over that yourself. And I don't know how to handle you being dead for 3 years and then suddenly being back. That is also way above my pay grade. I can only help you get through what you are feeling. And I was like, what an amazing fact that somebody wrote this into this of, people might not be equipped to handle this. Because I don't know what to do for somebody who presumably died and then suddenly came back to life.
Yeah, someone that ceased existing and then started existing again after 3 or 4 years. Yeah,
it's like, it's a lot to handle. Overall, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is kind of slow. I'm gonna be completely honest. It's kind of slow.
That's what I've heard for that one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it myself.
The only cool parts is that when you're talking about the people who got blipped and the fact that some of the people who got blipped are so mad they've started their own radicalized, like, not for realsies terrorist group to take back all the stuff that they lost. I was like, that is a response. Certainly
that is a response. That is a choice that you could make.
And the way that they talk about it, right, when they finally confront the woman who's running this group, she says it point blank, we're not trying to cause trouble. We just want to be heard and get our stuff back. It's not fair that we missed out on so much of our life and we're back and now we're being treated like second-class citizens when we weren't even that one before we left. And I was like, damn, she right though.
That actually ties into Black Panther Wakanda Forever nicely.
Oh, nice.
As the primary drive of conflict in terms of the overall story is Namor proposing an alliance with Wakanda against everyone else. Literally everyone else in the surface world. And Namor basically says, oh, and by the way, if you don't accept, we're just going to come back and destroy you first before we destroy everybody else. And we find out later in the movie that Namor's animosity towards the surface world, as he describes it, goes back to basically his origin story, which is that his mother and others of her people were in the Yucatan Peninsula at the time of the Spanish conquests in the 1500s.
Oh no.
And yeah, oh no is exactly the right terminology for that.
Just a very, oh no, the sudden realization.
Sudden realization. Oh no. Oh dear, this is the dark timeline.
Yeah, for those of you who think we've been on the dark timeline just very recently, you haven't been paying attention. You've been here a while.
there have been other very dark timelines in the world's past.
The 1500s at the Yucatan Peninsula is a prime example.
Yeah, 1500s Latin America, pretty much everywhere is a good example. And so, in the narrative of the movie, this group of people, they pray to their gods, who lead them to a underwater cave where there is a vibranium-infused plant. Basically, with the earlier part of the movie, the implication being that a separate vibranium meteor from what crashed in Africa, where Wakanda is, had crashed under the Yucatan, and thus was underwater, hence why, like, there isn't a superpowered civilization there above the water. But this is the origin of Namor, who was... his mother was pregnant with him when she took the plant medicine thing that was created.
Damn, he's old.
Yes, he is old. And he is the only one of his kind that, like basically, he is unique to his people in terms of being effectively a god. Everyone else, both the original people that took this plant and their other descendants, don't have his basically godlike powers. They are, like, super strong. Like, they are way ridiculously stronger than a normal human. But they aren't like Black Panther or Namor or Thor. Like way high up on the power chain.
If you max out this skill tree, you get godlike immunity.
Yeah, exactly. So in Namor's retelling of his origin, one of the parts of that origin story is that his mother wanted to be buried back in her homeland, so on land, not in the ocean. And Namor, in coming ashore with several others to bury his mother's body, is attacked by the slave-holding Spanish. And that's where he gets the name Namor, because one of the people that gets killed by Namor and his friends says to him that he has no amor, that there is no love in you. No amor, Namor. That isn't the origin in the comic books of that name, but that's the origin that they went for the movie.
It was a choice.
It was indeed a choice.
I think I'm gonna start calling our tea times. That was a choice.
Yes, choices have indeed been made in stories.
I'm gonna start getting that stupid little fucking butterfly thing from Life is Strange where this action will have consequences. Thank you, random butterfly at the top right-hand section of the screen.
Yes. Thank you. That is very helpful.
If only that happened in real life, just all of a sudden, oh no, the butterfly told me this is gonna have consequences.
It's like, oh, look, it's the butterfly of ominous futures.
But it's so pretty. That's why it's ominous.
That's why it's ominous. It's there to give you a false sense of security.
But to bust everybody's bubble.
Effectively, this description of Namor's backstory, which he is telling Shuri, is like, that is both the backstory for the character as well as and this is why I want to take out all of the surface world. So, by the way, Shuri, join me or die. Finger guns.
Insert here.
Yeah, exactly. So, in terms of the plot, Nakia had been recruited by Queen Ramonda to save Shuri from Namor, who had kidnapped both Shuri and Riri Williams for a plot reason that I skipped over.
Just a refresher for
And
everybody. Paco's only seen the movie once. I have not seen it at all.
yeah. And so Ramonda used I think it was like a conch shell that Namor had originally gave Ramonda and Shuri when he snuck into Wakanda to like go, hey, join me or die. In the first place, again, earlier plot point that I only briefly glanced over. Regardless, Ramonda basically lured Namor away with the conch shell. Nakia went into wherever Shuri and Riri were being kept. May have engaged in some slight killing of the people that were keeping Shuri and Riri Williams prisoner, and then escaped with them. For which Namor vows vengeance. And this is where our next major plot point in carrying through of like how to deal with grief happens, where Namor goes to Wakanda with a, I guess, task force, for lack of a better term, and kills Queen Ramonda.
Why is there so much killing in this movie?
You know.
No, I don't mean that like that.
To move the plot forward, you know?
I guess so. It's just, look, if it's some random goon, I'm expecting it, but there's just a lot of named characters that are, like, suddenly dying. Did you hire George R.R. Martin to just start randomly killing people? You shouldn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, at this point, technically the only named characters that have died on screen is Queen Ramonda herself. However, there are a lot of, like, characters that we see get attached to for a little bit and then are offed. So, I guess there is that.
No, Martin Freeman, you cost so much money.
No. No. Martin Freeman is fine. He gets through the movie alive.
Again? That's 2 for 2 for these movies, sir.
Yep. I'm sure that he'll be back for the next Black Panther.
Okay.
So Ramonda is killed, and Shuri then goes the vengeance route of grief.
Calm down, Ignio Montoya. It's not that serious.
And part of being able to go that route is that she was able to synthetically recreate the heart-shaped herb that gives the Black Panther powers after Killmonger had burned them all in the previous film.
Still the best villain, though. Killmonger was, like, on a whole nother level, even though he dressed like Vegeta for a solid minute. Like, what are you wearing?
Oh, so you're gonna love this next plot point.
Oh, no.
Because Shuri ingests the heart-shaped herb, which, in that process, you get to hang out in the ancestral plane for a little bit and talk to somebody. And she was expecting to be able to talk to her mom, Ramonda, who had just died. But she gets to meet Killmonger.
Oh my god, they bring him back? Wonderful plot choice.
They bring him back to be the person that she talks to in the ancestral plane. And the plot, it is explained in the movie that, yeah, the person that you see there is basically the person that you're subconsciously calling to.
I mean, if she's subconsciously, like, that mad, of course you'd get him. His entire shtick was burn the world.
Yep, that is exactly that. and like it's said pretty straightforwardly in the film, um, so that there is no confusion for the audience. But how it's done, uh, the method for how that's done is done like it's executed so well that it's like it's fine that you're effectively telling the audience this is what's going on, so that there isn't confusion for the audience, because the way that you're doing it is just so well executed that it's a yep, perfect. That's if you want to hit the audience over the head with this is what is happening, this is how you do that, and how you do that well. Um,
Right.
and it also cues us, the audience, in on kind of a, oh no, we know the direction that Shuri is going right now. This is this is going to not be good.
Yeah, if all of a sudden you are manifesting the ancestor that was very gun-ho about just murdering everybody, that is your cue to, mayhaps I should rethink my choices.
Yeah. Yep. Um, which, because it's because MCU film happens in the end ultimately, but there are a lot of unnecessary deaths between that and the end, um, through the actions that then take place. Um, but also in the process, like Shuri has her like resolving grief moment. Um, and ultimately all of that is that's like, this is fine, this is it is a it's the kind of storyline that I don't like. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of that kind of storyline, but like they set it up and they execute it pretty well, so I'm not going to deduct points just because it's not the type of storyline that I'm gung-ho for.
Yeah. So just so we're really clear for these tea times, me and Paco write. I don't know if my book will be out by then, but if the book is out by the time this tea time goes up, because I've written a book, we're doing this from the perspective of writing. Lots of people write very different ways. It's not that it's bad, it's just sometimes a choice was made. I don't agree with it, but a choice was made.
Yep. And so there's a distinction in, like, this was a choice that was made that for me personally, I'm not that big a fan of that kind of narrative, but that is different from the choice that was made in terms of we're going to insert this secondary plot line like over the course of the movie that is unresolved in this film. It is there to uh, set up another story later on, and only at the very, very beginning does it at all tie into the main overarching story thread. Those are two different criticisms. The first that I made earlier in this tea time about having that secondary story that is steering off to be a separate movie that doesn't tie in very nicely with the main story. That is for me a critique of, I don't think you should tell stories in this way, as it undercuts your the major story that you are trying to tell. In contrast to my critique of the now I will have my revenge, and at the last minute going, oh, never mind, I have learned my lesson, or whatever. Like, that kind of storyline, I just have it's not my favorite, especially when it's done like in a single film. um it works. I think that kind of storyline works better when it has more time to breathe.
Yeah.
um but especially in this film, with the point in the story where Queen Ramonda dies, like, that is well past the halfway point of a over 2.5 hour long movie. So that is way into the runtime. And
Yeah.
while there is a throwaway line. Well, at least I perceive it as a throwaway line very early in the film to imply that, like, Shuri flat out says, like, I want to burn the world down in response to, like, the grief of her brother being dead after 1 year had passed. Like, there isn't any indication in her previous behavior to indicate that's what she actually wants, and there isn't any indication between that scene and her mother dying to indicate that's what she really wants.
Yeah? I think now is a great time to tangent onto writing grief in books. Grief is not linear, number one. The grief isn't. Some people have a different starting point, everybody has a different ending point, but the thing of grief is sometimes it can last a really whole hell of a long time, and other times it's really fast, but the main point of grief is if someone is going through grief, your audience needs to be with them at least a little bit through what they're feeling. It just can't be a throwaway line of, I want to burn the world down, and then it never comes into fruition of their actions are representing that anger.
Yeah. That if you want to show that this character has that level of anger, we need to see it on screen, not just one line where basically all of this character's actions otherwise don't show that kind of grief. Because the kind of grief we do see from Shuri is being buried in her work.
Which is avoidance.
Which is avoidance, not anger.
Right.
And it's like, I think that it is perfectly fine to have one of your characters in your film where we're seeing, okay, this person is avoiding. That's the hurdle they need to overcome. Make that the hurdle they need to overcome. As opposed to you're showing that avoidance is the hurdle that needs to be overcome, and then it's suddenly, anger is the thing that needs to be overcome, and we have done this thing, we have made this plot point more than half the movie's runtime through to show that is the hurdle. Like, that's the hurdle that now needs to happen.
Right.
After we set up a different one earlier.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah. In NBC's Hannibal, the main character, Will Graham, throughout the entire runtime, is dealing with a mix of, like, anxiety, depression, unresolved anger, and you see that throughout the entire series because he's got night terrors, he can't sleep. He's nervous in crowds, he gets very twitchy and angsty. He is constantly at a shooting range, just shooting bullets until the gun is going click, 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 and then he empties it, which indicates this is a lot of unresolved anger that you don't have a way of healthily expressing, so you're just shooting things to make yourself feel a little better. They show it to you. They make it a point of showing it to you.
Yep. And, like, I will say, credit where credit is due, they do show Shuri's anger after her mother dies. My critique would be that before then, in words, they try to set up Shuri as being in an anger state of grief, but in actions that isn't shown on screen.
Yeah.
So my critique there would be that the movie tries to tell us that this is the grief stage that Shuri is in throughout the whole film, but they only actually show that is the grief stage that she is in after her mother is killed. And, you know, to be fair, I too might be kind of ticked off if a godlike being comes into my home and murders my mother in front of me. Like, I can understand this sentiment.
Turn up the God of War music. We're going to town.
are going to town. And yeah, so that is the impetus for the final conflict within the film, because we need to have that final everybody fights each other conflict. Otherwise, what are we paying all those CGI artists for?
Not good CGI. There, I said it.
Because we're not paying them enough and giving them enough time. That's the problem. And it's a ultimately the fight to the death between Shuri and Namor turns into a Shuri realizing the error of her vengeance ways and imploring Namor to yield when Shuri has the upper hand, and basically offering a let's be friends and let's not attack everybody else, which Namor accepts. And of course, because like we need to set up those future films, like right away, in like the end part of the film, we see narrative of like Namor's right hand woman being upset at like Namor's surrender, with Namor basically saying, "Oh no, it's totally cool. We now have an alliance with the most powerful entity on land who isn't friends with anybody else. We're friends with them, so we'll be able, like, all we need to do is wait for everybody else to beat up on Wakanda, and then they have to turn to us, and then we can beat up on everybody else together."
It's a plan. It's not a good plan,
Yeah.
but it's a plan.
It is a plan. But it is kind of revelatory of like Shuri had a hey, let's do peace, where Namor is going, yes, but actually no. Because Namor has not progressed past his revenge fantasy of death to all the people on dry land for the problems that their ancestors caused several hundred years ago.
Dude, you are ancient. I think it would behoove you to go to therapy for like a week.
I feel like that would probably help somewhat. And this actually is one thing where I'm going to dip my toe into my into the history degree for a little bit.
No, Paco's gotta change hats.
Because one of the things this element of the movie does bring up is the how do we actually deal with the consequences of colonization and empire, because those consequences are still ongoing, and in lots of places around the world, the colonialism and imperialism never stopped. And so those questions are questions that should be asked and that we should be finding answers to. But the answers provided by Namor in this film, or really Killmonger in the previous one, is might makes right. It is a continuation of that imperialist colonial mindset, basically with the, hey, they did it to us, so we can do it back to them.
That's so stupid, though.
Yes, but it is a very appealing idea. Especially when you cover it in the coat of paint of, we won't be half as mean as they were to us.
No, that's not true. That is not true. You are lying to yourself.
that is how it has worked out historically. The idea of, well, we got imperialized by this other group, so we can imperialize back, and we won't be anywhere near as mean as they were to us. Yeah, that basically never turns out to be the case. Um, and so for me, like, I can look at it as I am sympathetic to your response. Like, I am sympathetic to the rationale of what you're doing, and in many cases can agree that 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 you, the peoples or entity or groups that have reacted with violence to the violence imposed upon you are very often justified in that violence. um, an excellent example of that, of like just a devastatingly bloody conflict, was the Haitian Revolution,
Ooh.
the slave revolts against the French. Like, yeah, you're like, those people were in the position of slaves, short of the French being like, you know what, we have decided slavery no more, freedom for all. There aren't a lot of other options that you have aside from violence. But what I will criticize of the Haitian Revolution is elements of the after effect of that revolution. Not in the revolution itself, when both sides were absolutely brutal to each other, both the French and the former Haitian slaves. Um, I will condemn the brutality on both sides, but like, it's a understandable in the midst of a slave revolt and war. But what I will condemn is the after effect, when um, the leader in charge of the new Haitian state went, this is now a black country. We are going to kill all of the white men in the country. We are going to engage in a genocide of all white people in the country because Haiti is now a black country.
Uh, no. This is kind of like the
And
Professor Flowers thing. It's like, ma'am, you do not need to
yeah,
kill everybody.
yeah. And it's a look, I understand the origin of where that sentiment comes from, in a, yeah, this was the people group that enslaved you. I understand that desire for vengeance, because that's what this, at that point, that's what this is. Like, you have won the war, you have your own country, you are the people in charge. Um but then after that, going, we need to murder and expel any remaining people of this group within the country, I will not accept under any circumstance.
Yeah.
What, like, once their power is gone, their power is gone. Um, and I should also note that this did not apply to certain people of a white skin color, because they were made legally black in Haiti. Um, the 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 group that is generally pointed to are the Polish. Uh, Polish. There were Polish soldiers sent to Haiti by the French Empire, and most of the Poles joined with the Haitians against the French after arriving. Or, I mean, at some point after arriving, as they were more sympathetic to the Haitian cause than the French cause. And so after the war, Poles were granted a legal status as being legally black, um, which was a thing in those days back then. Like, being legally white or legally black wasn't based on like skin color. It was like a legal status that you could have. So even if your skin color was black, you could be legally white, and therefore have all the rights and privileges of being a white person. Um, Much less often after the 1800s, but that was a thing that was not uncommon in the 16 and 1700s in particular. Um,
Yeah.
but that tangent of history that I was going on, I use to highlight the motivations of Namor in this film, because his motivations are very understandable, just like Killmonger's in the first Black Panther movie. But in the end, where their self-justifications are, we're doing this to defend ourselves, the methods that they're taking in order to do that is a recreating of the imperial colonial system that they're rebelling against. Especially when it comes to Killmonger in Black Panther. His vision for the future is much clearer than Namor's in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. As far as I can tell, it seems like Namor's plan is like genocide of the surface world, rather than like just simply conquest. But it's a little fuzzy what his exact intentions are.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those... It's like the gnomes from South Park. There's a step 1, step 2, step 3 is left suspiciously empty, and then step 4, profit. What goes in step 3? We haven't gotten there yet. What? Should you not have all steps labeled before we begin a game plan?
Or it can be, we know what step 3 is, but you won't agree to step 3 if we tell you right now. So let's do step 1 and step 2, and then you're going to be in so deep that you have to do step 3.
What is step 3? You're going to have to be okay with a lot of stuff real fast.
Yeah.
Well,
because frankly, that's the modus operandi of a lot of colonial or imperial powers. We're doing these early steps, and we're not telling you what the next step is, because if we told you right away, you wouldn't agree to it.
What is step 1? We just want to explore the world and find all these other places. And step 2, when we find these other places, we want to sample all the goods and beverages. And step 3, murder and genocide. What? What the fuck is step 4? Take it over.
Profit. And step 4 is profit.
I feel like murder and genocide should never be on the table when you're trying to conquer a planet, and yet it is.
Yeah, and yet it is, all the time. Yeah, realistically, when it came to the Portuguese, Spanish, English, French, etc., in their explorations, it was step 1 was look for new trade routes. Like they may have said exploration for some of them, but it was always look for new trade routes. That was always the underlying reason. Step 2, encounter new people to trade with. Step 3, murder and genocide. Step 4, profit.
Well, I'm also thinking of other places that had this happen where it was revolutionary stuff. All I could think of is the apartheid in South Africa. Another dark moment in history.
Yeah, another dark time of history.
For those of you who are unaware, there are actually white people in South Africa that are born there.
Yep.
I know that sounds weird, but it's true. The country is evenly divided between native Africans and then these white people who never fucking left.
One of the other interesting tidbits about South Africa is that it is divided between Black Africans who have been there for millennia and millennia and millennia, and Black Africans who showed up in the last 1,000 years. This yoinking out of that history degree again. There's a time frame in African history that is known as the Bantu expansion, which is basically Bantu-speaking peoples that originated on the southern edge of sub-Saharan Africa, that they came to dominate all of East Africa, basically more or less south of Ethiopia, all the way to uh, South Africa. But in what is now modern Namibia and northwest of South Africa are the remaining peoples of the peoples that used to live across all of that land. If you've ever heard like when you'll have a video of someplace in Africa when they're speaking with like a clicking noises in their language.
Uh-huh.
That's the people group that is being represented there. The people groups that live in modern Namibia and the northern part of South Africa. Those peoples used to be the predominant people group all the way up to at least Kenya in southern Africa. And it was only around like 2,000 years ago, with an error bar of a couple hundred years, that Bantu-speaking peoples came to migrate and dominate all the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. So when looking at South Africa, it's not just black people and white people. It is white people. Well, it's basically English white people, Dutch white people, Bantu Africans, and non-Bantu Africans.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's like history is way more complicated than we give it credit for, and like it's a weird thing in, well, then like if you try to just boil it down to well, who was here first in terms of like who the land belongs to?
Who's on first?
Then,
what's on second? I don't know who's on third.
Yeah. Yep. But like that's where a lot of anti-colonial rhetoric often goes, is, well, give it back to the original inhabitants.
Do you know how hard that would be?
Yeah, exactly. And South Africa is a perfect example of that, because if it's give it back to the original inhabitants, then most of the black South Africans would have to leave, because the Bantu-speaking black South Africans aren't original to South Africa.
Yeah.
Like that isn't where their ancestors came from.
That is true. Also, South Africa is just weird.
What was that?
South Africa is also just weird. Like, it's the only place I can think of where you don't understand. Everybody that's in South Africa speaks almost exactly the same language, to where there's actually very little overlap. Like, you'll see the white people that live there just casually talking and then throwing in African words, and then just go right back to English, and the African people there do the exact same thing. It's one of those, oh, this is new.
There is a shared, I think it's Afrikaners. I don't remember the name of the language off the top of my head. Afrikaners may be a reference to the white people of South Africa. I apologize for anyone that I insulted.
Yeah, if anybody from South Africa wants to just drop in the comments, no, that's not how you say it, or what the actual word is, feel free. I'm not going to stop you.
Yep.
I don't care, make my comments.
Can't stop you. But yeah, the broader point is that there is now a shared language between black and white South Africans, like, that is a mix of Bantu languages, Dutch, and English. and that blend is spoken by pretty much everyone.
Actually, there is a South African band, I have it on my playlist, called D Anter, and if you watch the movie Chappie, they're the two people in that are the band. They are literally from South Africa, and if you listen to their songs, they will just be singing English, and then for like a solid verse, it's just all South African. Just, I don't understand a word you are saying to me. And then they'll go right back to English, and I'm like, huh. It's interesting. Yeah, D ant word.
I did some quick Googling. Afrikaans is the name of the language.
Oh, nice.
Afrikaners is a reference to the descendants of predominantly Dutch settlers.
Yeah.
And Afrikaans is also spoken in Namibia and to a lesser extent Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, as all of those countries were part of the British Empire back in the day, and thus there was some spillover in terms of language usage.
Welcome to the modern syntax. No, there is no solid language. It's a bastard child of every language that gets shoved into it.
Yep. Just like English.
English isn't even a real language. You can literally use a million different consonants in a single sentence, and it will still make sense. That it won't get your, like, Word document dinged for grammatical inaccuracy.
Yeah. English is that very awkward mix of both Germanic and Latin backgrounds smushed together into one language that then around the world would just scavenge people's pockets for new words.
Yeah. Like, poggers was an old fucking word from forever ago, and it's now made its way back into the syntax once again.
Yeah. Although I think with a completely different meaning and context.
Yeah.
But that's totally fine. There's there are a lot of words like moose or aardvark.
There's too many A's in aardvark. It makes me so aggravated.
What are all these A's doing here?
Well, that's also like the name Aaron. Why Aaron? Why is there a secondary A when it is completely unnecessary when Aaron, single letter A, would indicate the same name?
In case we lose one. We just want to keep the other one around.
It's a spare? Like a tire?
It's a sparrow letter just in case. With aardvark, it's because we yoinked it from, I think, Dutch. I think that aardvark is a Dutch word, if my memory serves.
Let me consult my handy dandy iPhone real fast here. What is the origin of the word aardvark? The word aardvark comes from Afrikaans Dutch, literally meaning earth pig. What? But that's not. Yep. But that's not what an aardvark even is.
Yeah, it's like, wait, but that isn't even. How did?
I got an answer, and I have so much more follow-up questions.
Yeah. Which follow-up questions that would divert us significantly away from Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
I mean, I think we completely got off the topic of Black Panther to the point where this is an entirely different phone call.
Alright, and now for part 2 of this tea party, we are going to go into Afrikaners words that have made their way into English.
Like aardvark.
Refill your tea, let's go.
Well, no, because when I hear the word earth pig, all immediately I could think of is, surely you mean platypus bear. Armadillo bear? It just says bear. This place is so weird. No, legitimately, if somebody told me this is an earth pig, I'd look at them and be like, is there also a fire pig? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
Like, not to just on the language, it's just, if that is the answer, it is the Afrikaans Dutch word of just earth and pig together for aardvark. I think I would have asked, why specifically pig? What about this looks like a pig to you? I'm super curious.
Well, I'm pulling up a picture right now, and I think you could maybe argue its nose.
Too bad that its nose executes a very long tongue.
Yes. All the better for eating ants.
That's literally all aardvarks do. They're fuzzy little vacuum cleaners that eat ants. No, it's an earth pig.
Not to be confused with the anteater.
That
a bigger fuzzy animal that eats ants.
See, now we're getting to now we've just fucked off from language, and now we're into the fact of the animal kingdom makes no sense. Red pandas are not pandas or bears. They are their own separate subclass of fucking animal.
This makes me want to bring up that comic that I showed you the other day of us in a random conversation. Main talking point, detour, another detour, another detour.
Well, it's true though, because it's like, no, this is actually a really good segue. Even though red pandas are their own separate subsection of animal, they are still classified as red pandas, which then brings up the question of, so was the panda before the red panda, or was the panda after the red panda? And the answer to that is, it does not matter. They are both equally important. However, in the subtext of the Black Panther movies, from what you told me, both of these sound like really good movies. Maybe not mashed together like a weird amalgamation of like a homunculi movie, but separately they would have made good movies.
Yes. Or at the very least, if instead of trying to really focus on that second storyline that doesn't go anywhere, like if it was just left right at the beginning as being a inciting incident, that maybe you could have picked up again in like an end credit scene or a mid credit scene. But like as the inciting incident to illustrate that, oh, Wakanda is actually having like troubles with other countries on Earth because Wakanda has vibranium and everybody else is jealous, and everybody else is like, well, I wouldn't trust other people with vibranium. Why should I trust them with vibranium? I should have the vibranium since I know that I would use it for only peaceful purposes, like conquering the world.
Legitimately, I would have made the joke, though, if somebody said, I would use it for peaceful purposes. Sit the fuck down, Thanos. Nobody cares. That would have been a funny joke in that movie.
How are you even in here?
Didn't we kill you last movie? I think we killed him like 2 movies ago. Yeah, 2 movies ago? 3. How many movies has it been since we've killed this fool? I'm losing track.
And we killed him twice. We cut off his head and we turned him into dust.
It's very important to know that. But yeah, it's just one of those... I personally, whenever I hear somebody say, I want to use it for peace, I immediately get this big stupid smile and I go, oh my god, you're actually an asshole.
It very much is a press X to doubt moment.
Well,
most of the time.
Well, here, right? Me and my editor were talking about this because we were watching an anime, right? Just, it doesn't matter which one. But the subject came up of, if you had this power, what would you do with it? Immediately, I was like, oh, I'd abuse the shit out of it right away. I didn't even hesitate. That was my first go-to answer. And he was like, this is what I know makes you a really good person, because not only did you say that with a straight face, but you smiled like that was your actual game plan. You would cry. You'd be like, I don't know what to do with this power. I feel like I'm not prepared to take it. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't think I like the fact that you know me well enough that, oh, I'd abuse the shit out of it wasn't an immediate red flag. It was a, gonna doubt that. I was like, why would you say that? He goes, people who say they'd abuse the shit out of ultimate power are usually the people that would try really hard to never let anybody know that they have the ultimate middle finger power. And I was like, huh. I was like, I don't think that's right. And I thought about it and I was like, damn it, he is right.
Yeah, you think about it more, you self-reflect a little bit, and it's like, damn it.
Right. So the 2 extremes are, I'm going to use it for peace. Oh my god, you're actually an asshole. The other person,
well, that's a red flag.
The other person, I'd abuse the shit out of it. Oh my god, you are a cinnamon child. We are in the safest hands ever.
You are a cinnamon roll. We can trust you.
No, I am a horrible monster of destruction and chaos. You cried because you stepped on a ladybug. I didn't mean to. It was just suddenly there.
It wasn't my intent.
I didn't even see it. No, I felt bad. you need to calm down. No, I think that's why in writing, if you're gonna make the how do we establish the big bad evil villain guy without outright saying he's the big bad evil villain guy, I would use it for peace is generally a good starting point.
Yep.
For no other reason.
especially if you've done it with a villain that has already done some kind of what we would consider morally questionable deeds.
Like Thanos literally deciding the only way to peace is to literally get rid of half of the universe to start over, and it's like, whoa, hold up. Hold up. No. That is way too much of an extreme reaction to something. I think we should definitely seriously consider other avenues.
We should maybe go back to the drawing board, consider some other options.
Yeah, like
have we considered more resources?
Right.
Do you think that's possible with the God Gun?
Right? You literally have the power to reshape the universe. Instead of subtracting, why not do extreme multiplication? Why not just Control-Shift-C on your Sims game and type motherload for the whole world and just leave it? And every time it's getting a little bit low, motherload again.
Yeah, exactly. And certainly when it comes to the trajectory of like things here on Earth, it's like we have generally seen hey, when people live better, they have fewer children, which means that we don't go infinite on the number of people.
Yeah. I think that is a weird thing when they were like, well, what happens if suddenly aliens showed up and said they were going to take care of all of your stuff and your means, and the only thing you had to worry about was working 4 hours a week? Do you know how many people would legitimately, like, die of happiness because they would realize all of my worries are now suddenly gone and I have infinite free time to pursue my own path? They wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, for real. There is something to be said of the, alright, we will be your new overlords. We are going to give you free healthcare and food and shelter, but you will need to toil for 4 hours a day.
For like a whole week? Ew, gross. No, we're not slave masters, only like 3 days a week. Every human in the world gives each other that side-eye smile. Really?
It's like, oh.
Okay.
All right.
The aliens, they're very okay with this sudden demand, and we are waiting for them to revolt. We finally grabbed one and had them explain their normal day-to-day before we showed up. I don't think we're actually the most ruthless thing in the universe. They said they worked 40-plus hours a week, 5 days a week, plus weekends were built towards other things that they had to get done because they didn't have time during the work week. What?
We, the conquering aliens, have gone, my goodness, these people were mad, I say.
The aliens, we're really big fans. Really. Humans...
Or the aliens just being, like, horrified in a... How could anyone be so brutal? Like, we're the most brutal alien species in the known universe, and yet you... Weird. How could you?
Somebody shrugs, I don't know, takes a sip of their Starbucks. It's just the way things have always been done. And you never thought that was bad. Nope.
Or the opposite. Oh yeah, we've thought it was bad. We just, didn't change it.
You were okay living under this oppressive regime? I mean, what else were we gonna do?
Yeah.
I think we made a grave mistake.
It's the old, technically we weren't happy about it, but,
What are you gonna do?
Go along to get along, I guess.
No, that would be the most hilarious thing.
By the way, thanks for showing up with these, 4-hour work days, 3 days a week. Big fans.
I think we might have to take them on our next conquering mission. Why? They are a whole different breed of crazy.
Well, I think that I have pretty well, exhausted my thoughts on the actual Black Panther Wakanda Forever film.
And you did it in half the time. minor detours.
Yeah, with time enough for several detours.
Again,
Both on animals, history, and language.
welcome to the syntax of humanity. No, it doesn't get better, it actually gets worse. Well, I'll think about going to see it. I was just never a big fan of the first Black Panther movie for no other reason than I was like, I have no basis for what this is about before I go into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those nerds where it's like, if I don't have a basis for the background, I'll be aggravated at myself. So I had to go find Black Panther comics, and that was a trip down racism lane I wish I hadn't taken.
Yeah, it's like if you picked up any of those comics from before, like, 2010.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god.
A little yikes.
No. What started out as like a little nightmare has suddenly grown exponentially, and now it's bursting at the seams, and I'm like, oh no. How do you write this and not think to yourself, mayhaps we should not think about publishing this?
The past was a different time.
Welcome to the 1950s. You go to breakfast in a suit. Everybody that's a girl has a boy's haircut. You can buy a house for $10 and a stick of gum. Yeah.
But also, women can't have credit cards.
Or vote.
They were allowed to vote in the 50s.
Were they? I don't know. I feel like so much stuff was. Oh yeah, 19.
In the 1950s,
yeah,
yes.
okay. I was like,
In the 1850s, no.
look at how far we've come. Look at how far we're going backwards too. It is amazing.
Well, we'll see if we can get the foot off the reverse pedal.
Or just in general, get out of the car. Maybe you should walk for a little bit.
A different mode of transportation? That just sounds like crazy talk. Meanwhile, Europe is laughing in train.
No, legitimately, everywhere else that you go is just public transportation is generally what people use, if not just outright biking or walking everywhere. Cars are one of those, where the fuck are you going? And how long is it going to take you to get there? Oh, we're going to be on the road for forever, like 45 minutes. Americans laugh in summer vacation.
Yeah.
Literally.
45 minutes laugh in commute time.
No, okay, so tangent and then we'll call this good. Our good friend Aztec was literally sitting there trying to do like college level math of how to pick all of us up on the way to go see her girlfriend, to the fact that we were like, well, if you go pick me up at this state to keep anonymity, if you pick me up in this state, then we're gonna have to get food because I'm not gonna drive godly amounts of hours on an empty stomach. Like, that's not happening. Aztec, oh yeah, that's true, huh? And then, oh, actually, you know what? Sage, another friend of ours, can meet us at the halfway point, and then we can follow her to where we gotta go. And I was like, or you could just fucking get a plane ticket. And Aztec's exact response was, that's expensive. Like, yeah. Aztec.
Have you looked at gas prices recently?
Yeah, and then, if I buy a ticket now, it's gonna be expensive. If you buy a ticket when you want to go, it'll be even more expensive because it'll be a major holiday. Take the L on the fucking train ticket now.
Yeah, take the small L right now. That was the other path that she was looking for how to do a train across, which involved mostly Greyhound bus as opposed to trains.
Well, I feel like people don't realize it's like trains are very nice if you live in the states that still give a shit about trains.
Yeah.
If you're not in those states, welcome to the Greyhound bus system. It's crowded.
Yep. There's also the slight issue of there just aren't very many rail lines that go through the Rockies. So if you're on one side of the Rocky Mountains, there just aren't very many rail lines that could even potentially get you to the other side of them.
Yes, Mother Nature's best wall ever, the mountain. You want to go over? It's going to be a long time. You want to go around? It's going to be a long time. What if we go through? Laughs in mountain. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know when you get to the other side. Yeah, so that was a fun thing.
It was a very fun conversation. I did enjoy the just trying to do all the math on how to actually acquire the whole friend group on the way from point A to point B.
Literally, I made the joke in the call. I was like, "Are we going to Mordor? Why are we picking up the whole fellowship on the way?"
We don't want to leave anybody behind.
I know, and also it's like, I could just meet you guys there. Why? What are you gonna do? I will literally get a plane, and then I will have you guys pick me up at the fucking airport, but I don't think we'll be there at the same time.
But the adventure there is part of the journey. It's part of the fun.
I have motion sickness, so it doesn't matter particularly what way I go. I will either fall asleep to save myself from the motion sickness, or someone's gonna have to hold my hair back and, like, let me just be face first in a bucket.
Alright, that's fair.
Welcome to extreme motion sickness.
I guess for health reasons, we will give you a pass.
Not even for health reasons, just I got the cash to burn. Legitimately, Welcome to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This is Paco. He's the historian. This is Aztec. She's got the tunes. Who are you? I got the bills. Like the debt? No.
I got the cash.
I'm the rich bitch of the group. I literally stumble out of bed at like 2 in the morning and go, what are we doing and why are we doing it? We have this outrageously big plan and it costs a lot of money. My checkbook's in like the third drawer in the kitchen. Go get it. I'll sign it and just do whatever the fuck you're gonna do. What? Did I stutter?
Did I stutter? I'm funding this operation.
I am Tony Stark. I am...
In conclusion, Hella is Tony Stark. The new Tony Stark.
So you have suits that'll help people? Oh, no. I fund everything. I would...
No, Hella just designs everything and builds everything and funds everything and...
What does she want in return? Photo ops. Hella, what would you have done if you had bought Twitter? Nothing. They were doing fine. I would have bought it and...
They were doing just fine.
I would have bought it just so I could put that on the... Alright, I own another company. What are you going to change? Not a... Oh, okay, one thing. The blue you guys are using for the app, I don't particularly like it. Do you have a little bit of a darker blue? Yeah, that's all we're changing. Just a little bit of darker blue.
That's the only change. And it's going to annoy so many people.
Right, they're going to complain about the fact that you changed the Twitter blue mark. All I did was make it a little darker because I didn't particularly like the Powerade blue it was.
Yep.
I changed it from...
We changed it and we'll do it again.
Right? Literally, my tweet. How could you change it? If you fuckers aren't happy with that change, I will change it to green and then never change it back. So you can either get okay with the darker blue, or I can start making this bitch ugly. Pick an option.
Yeah, because it'll be green. Not one of the pretty greens.
No, I would just wait for that one person. Haha, you won't. And then do two, and we're not naming names in this house, this motherfucker, and tag them. That is now being changed to green. It's like, why would you tag me? I don't think you understand who you're playing games with.
It's like, that would be a very Elon Musk move.
Yeah, but also it's a very me move. Like, we don't name names in this house. Aztec. But you were trying to figure out how to do college level math to get to your girlfriend. This was great. And to pick up the Fen group.
With lots of help along the way.
Like, well, you could pick up...
Ghost and Hella, Paco, and...
Paco, you could pick me up in X city. Oh, I'll be living in this state. You could pick me up in this section of that state. Ghost also lives in that state, so... Ghost, do you want me to pick you up, or are you gonna come to my house?
Yep.
I'll come to your place. Awesome.
And Sammy, we know that you're currently nowhere nearby, but is it possible that you could get yourself closer?
So that way we can literally just swing in and be like, Kroll, we're in this state to pick up gas and food.
Yep.
Take pictures along the way. Just click, click, click. Hella, no. This is going into my personal folder of pictures of everything I've missed.
Alright. I think we've really lost the plot now.
just like the MCU. I feel like we've lost the plot on these movies.
Yes, just like the MCU, and we pull it back. We got there in the end. Well, thank you for inviting me on again.
Thank you for talking about a movie that I know I'm not going to go watch for no other reason than the first one got rid of my favorite character and I won't go back.
Fair enough.
No, Killmonger was my favorite character. Like, sir, you are a crazy motherfucker, but you are the funnest part about this movie.
It's like, you are a fantabulous villain. Why'd they have to kill you?
No, legitimately, when he's in the throne room and he looks at the queen and he goes, "Hi, auntie," and I'm like, "You cheeky so-and-so."
Yeah.
He was my favorite. But yeah, that was the newest Black Panther movie. We recorded this as of November 19th, 2022, in the year of Our Lady Dolly Parton. So, when this goes up, circa 2024, this was recorded 2 years in advance.
So, there were a lot of spoilers in this if you just skip to the end. But I figure that we've given you enough time to see the movie.
Yeah, at the 2-year marker, guys, if you haven't seen it by now, that's a you choice.
Yep.
And these are bi-monthly tea times. Like, there's 2 months in between every tea time. So, realistically, 2 years and 2 months is enough time to see something. If you haven't seen it by now, you've just completely committed to the fact that you will be spoiled on some stuff. Be okay with that.
Well, again, thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, it is. And thank you so much for showing up. Thank you to the people who have shown up to this tea time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!